Mutt is part of the new wave of LGBTQIA plus films where it's beyond the coming out stage, it's beyond the initial trauma. Now we're in the adjustment period of just trying to live life and exploring life after the dust settles. To summarize Mutt, it has been more than a year since Fina has transitioned to living their life as a male, and while they have become comfortable in their own skin and also happier than ever, when it comes to their relationships, there's a lot of things that need to be repaired. John is their ex from when they were presenting as a woman, and with them coming back into their life, there's this desire to try to reconcile even though things have physically changed. Alongside that, they have to address the abandonment of their little sister Zoe, who seeks them out, and on top of that, Fina's father is coming to New York through Newark Airport, and there's the anxiety of him seeing Fina as they are now, trying to reconcile that, as well as deal with the fact that Pablo, their father, he's a bit old school, so in terms of dead naming, in terms of using the right pronouns and all that, the little stuff that Fina is still trying to build a tolerance for is still triggering, and trying to make it so that they can have the relationship that they used to have while Fina is authentically themselves is something that you can tell that Fina wants, Pablo wants as well, but it's not going to be a quick and easy transition from him having a daughter to now gaining a son. When it comes to Mutt, the first highlight for us is that it takes a day-in-the-life approach. Mutt, even with there being such limited representation when it comes to trans men, is not trying to create big moments or really put a statement out there. Also, it's not even made to look all that artsy. You just pretty much get dropped in Fina's life, and while them being a trans man informs a lot of what happens in situations, you can tell it's not the be-all to end-all for them. Yes, certain situations are made complicated by them being a trans man. Like, for example, normal day-to-day thing, they go to get a check from their job. The issues of being a trans man is when they want to get that check cashed, their documentation doesn't match the name they go by in their day-to-day life. So with their boss putting that name instead of their government name, now the bank teller wants to give them issues. But while you see stuff like that happening, there's also simple stuff like Zoe wanting to go see their older sibling because their mother is not the type to open up about when it comes to issues at school, their first period, anything like that. So instead, they go to the sibling who they know is a bit more open, who's a bit more loving, and you just seeing them reconnect after a year of absence. Also, day in the life stuff is Fina spends a good amount of time during the movie trying to get a car so they can pick up their dad who just flew in from Chile, because just like Fina is Zoe's comfort, for a long time for Fina, Pablo, their father, was their comfort. When there was a rainstorm or something like that happening, they didn't go to their mother, they went to Pablo. And with them transitioning and so much changing now, just like you can see Fina trying to reconnect with John and see if they can pick up where they left off with that, even if they physically have transformed, you can see the same thing when it comes to Pablo. They want to reconnect with someone who made them feel safe, made them feel loved, gave them affection, made them feel comfortable in a way that they wasn't able to offer themselves before, and see if, even with things changing in terms of their name, how they present, what they call themselves, maybe they can still have everything that made their former life tolerable, and now with everything being better since they're comfortable in their own skin, that feeling that they got for them, helping them go beyond feeling like life is tolerable, or maybe getting that feeling that now they can truly thrive. So the second highlight piggybacks off the first in the form of watching Fina's relationships, especially relationships that came from before they transitioned. Because seeing Fina with people part of the LGBTQIA community, like their roommate, or the people who they go drink and party with is one thing. We're very used to seeing that. But in terms of seeing people like Fina interact with people who knew them before they transitioned, outside of maybe Pose, which had an episode or two of where Blanca or Elektra was seeing their family, it's not something you see expanded that much. You don't get to see movies too often when focused on the trans community go over not just their own personal transition, but what is the best way to put this? But also the reaction and adjustment to them transitioning, especially in a way which goes beyond the short-term shock of it or else maybe rejection, but rather the long-term relationship building and reconciliation of who you were to them when you first met them to who you are now. And of course, in some ways, as we noted in the last topic, Zoe's just like, I want my older sibling. But then when it comes to John, you can see the levels to it that don't get to be explored that often, especially for trans men. You don't get to really see the adjustment of this person was at one time your girlfriend who you love deeply, even had sex with, and now they present as masculine. Their breasts are removed, they're getting a chiseled jawline, shorter hair, and in the summary or else the character description given for this film, it's noted that Ja is a straight male. And you can see, while it doesn't really go set in the film, him trying to adjust to this idea that you're somebody I loved at one time, who I used to argue with, to reconcile with, and used to have sex with. I still have these feelings for you, but you identify as a man, and I want to respect that. But at the same time, there's still this lust when it comes to seeing and being around you. And just his challenge of dealing with that, combined with the history that they had, which already seemed to be a bit dramatic, definitely brought something new to the zeitgeist when it comes to depiction of trans people and the lives they go through. And then with Pablo, I appreciated that when it comes to Pablo, it wasn't this, ideal type of thing where Pablo is the most progressive father you could ever think of. He's someone who doesn't fully understand transitioning. He definitely says some things which can be considered ignorant, but at the same time, at one time, Fun was his little girl and was probably one of his favorite people. So there's a recognition that I want you in my life. I don't fully understand who you are, but if you give me the grace and patience, I will make adjustments and changes just as you have made adjustments and changes to your life. I just have to be allowed to still be able to hold these memories of you as who you were, because as much as that may not be who you are anymore, at the same time, those are the type of moments that have been some of the best in my life, and I don't want to erase them or drastically alter them just because you are no longer that person anymore in some ways. What I'm trying to say here is Pablo is clearly willing to make the journey, but he wants the kind of understanding that it's very complicated to go from, as noted before, having a daughter become a son and not getting to mourn in a way what that daughter was at one time. Overall, what Mutt presents to you is that everybody's living a human experience which has different flavors based off of their culture, their gender, their sexuality, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to most of our relationships having complications because of personal flaws or miscommunication, far more than it is about any of the things which may become hot button social issues.